So you'd be, you know what? We'll use the word Allah for the description of what you believe God to be in Islam, and I'll just use the word God or Yahweh or whatever, um, so that we don't have to keep mixing terms. Just so you keep them both separated.
Yeah.
That's what I've done with Muslims in the past. Not that you have to do that, but I've just found it to be a lot easier to just define terms from the get go.
Yep. Now, notice again from the Sharia. Whoever travels a path seeking knowledge, Allah makes easy for him a path to paradise. What kind of knowledge? Gnostic knowledge? Maybe. Angels lower their wings for the seeker of knowledge. Those in the heavens and the earth and the very fish in the water ask Allah to forgive the person endowed with sacred knowledge. Notice if you read the Gospel of Thomas, which has just coincidentally 114 sayings of the Gnostic
Hmm.
Jesus. Sheer coincidence. And one of them says, one of them speaks of the fish in the water, but then, hey, just, I have no idea. Muhammad didn't make up anything. He was never a plagiarist. The
Yep.
superiority of the learned Muslim over the devotee is like the superiority of the moon over all the stars. The learned are the heirs of the prophets. The prophets have not bequeathed dinar, which is money, nor dirham, money, but have left sacred knowledge, and whoever takes it has an enormous share. Now we talk about knowledge. So this world and what is in it are accursed, except for the remembrance of Allah and someone with sacred knowledge or someone learning sacred knowledge. The world is evil. The world is accursed. David Rice says,
Mhm.
"Take beer." I know, I know.
Take
You know what's crazy?
yeah.
You know what's crazy? You go to the Middle East, and I've traveled all over the Middle East, and everywhere you go, they have fake bacon, turkey bacon, and you're like, if you guys want bacon, just eat it, please.
You
It'll
don't know
not.
what you're missing, guys.
And you're like, you know what? I take bacon. Look, as you guys know, bacon is a vaccine specially invented against Islam.
That's and
Okay.
yeah, you know what? Honestly, I feel like all this polemics and apologetics that we do, it's not as powerful as the taste of bacon to get someone to turn away from Islam. Maybe that should be our new idea. Just
Yeah.
cook
Yeah.
bacon and
Offer them
see.
bacon, people. Bring them to
Uh-huh.
the. Okay. Moving on. So this world and what is in it are accursed. Remember, the Gnostic idea is that the world of matter is evil. So the world is cursed except for sacred knowledge. Again, parallels with Gnosticism, right? Now, Yahya ibn Abi Kathir said, studying sacred knowledge is a prayer. Sacred knowledge. Okay, having sacred knowledge. What sacred knowledge? This is a prayer. And of course, there is nothing that is superior to seeking sacred knowledge. Very interesting. This is again within the reliance of the traveler.
Hmm.
Nawawi says there are similar statements from whole groups of early Muslims I've not mentioned that are like those I've quoted, the upshot of which is that they concur that devoting one's time to sacred knowledge is better than devoting it to voluntary fasting or prayer, better than saying Subhanallah, literally exalted is Allah above any limitation or any other devotions. Again, they're
Right.
stating that the knowledge, the secret knowledge, the gnosis, is greater than the five pillars of Islam.
Right. So this concept of grace and the superiority of God to not only create the universe and whatnot, but in Christianity, God comes to us to be an example for us to pay for the sins that we have committed, so that through His love we are able to be saved. It's His power, by His power and His grace we are able to enter into heaven. But in this concept here of Gnosticism, and especially as it relates to Islam, God apparently is not strong enough and doesn't have enough love and doesn't have enough grace in order to do that. He places that full burden on top of mankind to somehow be able to shuffle around in the dark and find this light and find this gnosis and knowledge, so that then they can earn their own salvation through that sacred knowledge. To me,
Mm-hmm.
that's a huge issue. It kind of goes along with them being Unitarian, and so there's just a big theological issue that comes along with that.
Yeah. Let's continue. So now let's look at this from the Sharia. Again, let's look at the Quranic evidence for following the scholars, right? Ask those who know if you know not. Usually this is translated as know. And again, this knowledge they speak of the Quran is the gnosis. Ask those who know. That's why Muslims used to say, please have you consulted a scholar? Okay? So I used to say to them, have you consulted a scholar? Because I have. Because when they kept saying to me, please consult a scholar, I went and consulted the scholars. Ask those who recall, if you know not. By consensus of all scholars, this verse is an imperative for someone who does not know a ruling in sacred law or the evidence for it to follow someone who does. That's called taqlid. Virtually all scholars of the fundamentals of Islamic law have made this verse their principal evidence that it is obligatory for the ordinary person to follow a scholar who's a mujtahid.